Thank you very much. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the presentation by Pursuit. And the focus of our company is on zinc, some more zinc, and we have a little bit of copper as well. And in this presentation, I'll take you through why we have that commodity focus within our portfolio. So we've just listed on the ASX, listed last week, having raised $6 million in June. So we now have 65 million shares on issue. The transaction was done via reverse takeover with an existing company. As of closing yesterday, we had a share price of 22.5, which gives us a market cap of about $15 million. And the portfolio of projects that we have, we purchased from Teck, their Australian division, which we've had a long-term relationship with, and we bought two projects in northern Queensland, the Blue Bush Zinc project and a project called Paperbark, which has got zinc and copper potential as well, and the Kubapiti project in central South Australia. So we believe that our portfolio is rather unique. We've got an ideal location within the world's greatest base metal province, and that's the Mt Isa Super Basin here in northern Queensland. The Blue Bush project, it has over 120 square kilometres of zinc mineralisation. It's the biggest zinc system in Australia and probably one of the biggest in the world. And on the Paperbark projects, there's existing resources which we can look to develop, and there's also significant copper mineralisation. So when we put this transaction together, we spent the last year or so looking specifically for zinc projects. Now, why did we do that? Well, last year we saw a 3.6% increase in zinc consumption, but that was against a 4% decrease in mine supply, a 5.5% decrease in refined zinc production, and Australian zinc production fell by 43% with the closure of Century. So those of us that have followed the zinc market, we've heard quite a lot in the last 5 or 6 years, zinc, its time is coming, it's going to have its time in the sun. And it never quite got there over the last couple of years, but now it has arrived. We're seeing rapidly falling inventories, and you have a look at that chart there, you can see that the LME warehouse stocks have fallen from about 450,000 tonnes down to now about 250, and they continue to fall. Now, to put that in context, that's about 10 or 11 days worth of global consumption. So when you get to those sorts of levels, it's actually getting pretty critical in terms of supply and demand. So what we're seeing within the fundamentals of zinc is a real balancing between the supply and demand, and it's really driven by the fundamentals of the business. We're not seeing lots of traders going in there taking long positions. It's actually the fundamentals of the zinc market at the moment. I guess that's been coupled with a lack of new discoveries globally. Zinc hasn't been a particularly hot metal to be in for a while, so particularly in terms of greenfields exploration, there hasn't been a lot of work done, and so that has obviously fed through to not many globally significant new discoveries. So at Pursuit, we're very much a believer in the zinc cycle, and that this one's going to be a case of stronger for longer. I guess if we look in a little bit more detail about the dynamics of the market at the moment, the prediction for this year, the deficit in zinc, was about 220,000 tonnes over the course of 2017. But what we've already seen in the first 6 months is a deficit of about just over 200,000 tonnes. So it's nearly twice what was predicted. So that's why that stockpile is getting to fairly critical sort of levels. And also, we've seen the second deepest deficit in the year in the past 22 years up until June. So it's a pretty finely balanced market at the moment. And in the zinc business, if you're going to get involved in the zinc business, it's all about timing. There are relatively short periods of time where the zinc producers and pre-producers, developers like us, where you make money. And so it's all about, for a pre-producer like Pursuit, bringing our projects to market at the right time, being able to finance them, develop them, and then create value for shareholders within these relatively short periods of time. So we have a look at what happened over the last major zinc cycle. It was actually about 10 years ago now, so between May 2005 and March 2009. Within that 4-year period, we saw zinc go from about 50 cents US a pound up to a peak of about $2.20, and then all the way back to about 50 cents a pound. And so it's spent 28 months above $1 a pound, a year and a half above $1.50, and it peaked at about $2. So we're seeing similar sort of behaviour in the price of zinc at the moment. So we're sitting around about that $1.50. It's come off a low base of around 60, 70 cents or so. So we're seeing a similar sort of trajectory. And what you want to be, particularly as a junior with zinc projects, you want to be in the front part of that curve. You don't want to be in the back end of the curve when the zinc price is falling. You want to be in the front part of the curve, raise your capital, add value to your projects, and then look to capture that value within that period of time. So if you're going to do zinc, you might as well go to the best part of the planet to do it, and that's here in northern Queensland. So the Mt Isa Super Basin is one of the world's truly great metalliferous provinces. There's 6 major zinc-lead SEDEX deposits within that province. There's a number of world-class copper deposit. There's a world-class Broken Hill type deposit. So it's a highly endowed metalliferous part of the crust. So it's one of the best places to do this sort of work. Our projects are in relatively close proximity to the Century Mine, which means we're in an area of good infrastructure. And so we're in a good address, both from a geological and also infrastructure perspective. So looking at the projects in a little bit more detail, Paperbark is situated 25 k's to the southeast of the Century Mine, and Bluebush is about 70 k's to the northeast. So that gives us good road access. There's a power line that goes within 10 kilometres of Paperbark, and then there's all of the processing infrastructure associated with the Century Mine, which is looking to be put back into production. So Bluebush in a bit more detail. It's the largest sediment-hosted deposit within the Mt Isa province and probably in Australia. So there's zinc mineralisation over an area of 120 square kilometres. So that red dotted line on that map, all those drill holes within that line have got at least 1% zinc in them. And most of those drill holes are kilometres apart. So when you're looking at a world-class zinc deposit, a world-class zinc deposit will fit within an area that's about 1 kilometre by 1 kilometre. So there's plenty of space here to actually find another Century or another MacArthur River, both in terms of their size and their style. The other thing about this style of mineralisation is it's controlled by these faults. So the faults that you can see marked on that map, basically they provide a focal point for fluids which create the zinc mineralisation. And so for us, it's all about, within this massive system that we have, is finding the areas where it's been focused. So where it's focused, the grade will be better, the thickness will be better. There's been about $13 million worth of work spent on this project. It's been held in the past by Western Mining, Anglo and Teck. So it's a project that's never been in the junior end of the market. And that was one of the things that we wanted to do with Pursuit as well, was to bring to market a project that hadn't been held by juniors before and that generally the investment community didn't know a lot about. So we've been able to achieve that. So with all that previous work that's been done, we're using that to focus our drilling into areas where we expect to get better grades and thicknesses of the mineralisation within this massive system. So we're currently drilling at the moment. We started a couple of days ago. This is some of the rocks that came out of the ground yesterday. So we know we're in the right type of rocks for this style of mineralisation. We're getting a lot of pyrite. We're also intersecting some sphalerite in the drill hole as well. So we're in the right part of the system. We've just got to keep on drilling. The analogue that we're using is really based around what Teck has been doing over at Tina across the border in the Northern Territory. So as we heard yesterday, Tina is probably the biggest globally significant zinc project that's been found in the last 20 years. And you can see from this cross-section, as they've drilled it closer to this fault controls a lot of the mineralisation. They're getting better grades and better thicknesses. And so that's what we need to do at Bluebush. We've got this large area of zinc. We know we've got the right type of rocks. Now what we have to do is find these faults that control the mineralisation and thicken it up into economic intersections. And that's the process that we're going through on Bluebush right at the moment. So we also have down on the Paperbark project quite a lot of zinc potential there as well, hence our overall focus on zinc. So there's a resource there, it's called JB, it's about 10 million tonnes at 3% lead and zinc at the moment. And a lot of the work that was done there previously focused upon a particular rock layer. The mineralisation sits within a particular unit of rocks. But what we believe is that it's actually these faults, the structural controls on the mineralisation, that control the better grades and better thicknesses. So we're going to do some drilling targeting these faults with the objective of getting higher grade and thicker intersections at JB. On this project though, from the previous work that was done, the best zinc anomaly at surface hasn't actually been drilled, and that's a thing called JE. So that's quite a strike extensive anomaly. There's a fair amount of high grade zinc at surface, and we're going to go and put some holes into that starting in about a month's time and see what sort of mineralisation we're going to get on that prospect as well. So in this part of northern Queensland, you can't do much field work during the summertime. We're very conscious as a junior explorer to be providing a lot of information and news flow into the market. So what we're going to do is do some metallurgical test work on the deposit at JB, the 10 million tonnes at 3%. So some previous work was done on this, and what they did is they looked at taking the material that you would mine and then upgrading that through a process called heavy media separation. And what that actually was very successful. So they took something that was 3%, they put it through a heavy media separation plant and upgraded it to 15% lead and zinc. So all of a sudden, you're getting something there that you can then put through a processing plant. And we're only 20 kilometres away from Century. So that could unlock a lot of value in this project. All of a sudden, you can fundamentally change the economics of that resource. We know also that it produces a very high-grade concentrate. It's about 56% in zinc and 60% in lead, so that's quite high grade. There's low deleterious elements as well. So that is a method that we're going to do more work on over the summertime of looking at unlocking a significant amount of value in the project. Also at Paperbark, and this is where the copper flavour comes in, from the work that was done previously, there's some very large copper anomalies here, and we released some results this morning from some follow-up work that we've done where we were getting quite spectacular copper grades at surface, 10, 20, 30, 40% copper over an area of about 900 metres to a kilometre long. And away from that, we're also getting these very large copper soil anomalies. So there's about 17 kilometres worth of copper mineralisation at surface here. And in that entire 17 strike kilometres, there's only one drill hole that's tested that, and that returns 6 metres at 1.1% copper. Now, in a sediment-hosted copper deposit, that's getting pretty close to being economic. So the other part of our drill program is going to go and follow up the copper oxides, where we've got a real focus now to the drilling that we need to do, and plus follow up this 6 metres at 1.1% copper to see whether we can define two things. One is a copper oxide deposit in the area to the north, and whether sitting underneath that there's a large copper sulfide deposit. So the copper has got two components to it. We'll be exploring for the copper oxides, but also the copper sulfides as well. And there's just heaps of space here. These are massive anomalies, so that'll be exciting to get the drill rig down there and see what sits underneath them. So I guess in summary, just to wrap up, with what we've done, the focus on zinc, it's all about the timing. If you're going to get involved in the zinc business, you've got to get involved at the right time. So it's about picking the right projects. You want to be at the front part of the price cycle, which is happening at the moment. And during that period of time, you want to look to maximise the project values during the period of high price. Because you know that there is going to be a time where it will start to fall again. But however, we believe that this time we're going to see a zinc price cycle which is going to be stronger for longer. The company's well funded, having just raised $6 million, listing on the ASX last week. We have the largest area of zinc mineralisation in Australia at Bluebush. We're currently drilling to provide a focal point and locate a focus of that zinc mineralisation for us to do further work next year. On Paperbark, we're going to, over the summertime, do the work to look at further testing of the heavy media separation work to upgrade the material from 3% to 15%, which would then provide us with material we could feed into a mill. The best zinc anomalies on Paperbark are yet to be drilled, so we will do that commencing in about a month's time. And we have the drilling that we're going to do over the 17 kilometres of strike of the copper anomalies as well. So from a junior, we're going to be putting a lot of information into the market. There's going to be a lot of good news flow, and I encourage everyone to follow our progress over the course of the next year or two. Thank you very much.